Monday morning, the 28th day of the month of March. Yakwaba, and now what you for Friday? You may have to mamma, my God. Pay the church and Yamisha Munina, this year. But anyway, weekend, no echo say.
Full of activities, funeral, and other one or two family issues. BBI fine. BBI come on.
I go see about to say.
Adum na sumesubi me ho ye pa Mr. Speaker na wonso e. The radio sepa, the radio se. BBI call smooth. What I say? BBI call smooth. Sasa na person oti. BBI call smooth.
I go BBI there.
Oh, like a sorry church everything, and why we him say me ko home ma and me who omo so BBI ni je. Who ko fika hon so
so ka oja ko fi home.
Maka ka hon me who ko fika hon kra de ani je gangan to awan. No be paper we na paper say. So who peti?
Regret say. Kwame.
Alright.
Edu e bia papa won tie wure ya say. Ebe cha 2 weeks bia be na kwa ba. Oba say ya na nima e sire. I see. We no ma so na osa so poni ni say abun say tija.
Na e come. Graphic shots here na yenko.
Graphic dey kura kosia nti man fa ganen time.
Yes, start e wo Kessben online. E when you dey shots.
Okay.
Ma fa ganen times obokrata no na krata no anim ha no. Dr. Mr. William Edakwa. Women for Dakwa and the Dagan in terms of Bocrata no anim. Na Kwame Broforo ye tietia. It's a solid 21 school placement, you know. I buy Eddie Tivet, Abeka hon ye free. Na so Kwokrata fet also a doing a ho and 73 Munina. Mr. William Dakwa, Ministry of Education, and Penia or Nona, Washama TV Jumedi, one year coordinator, the ma. Free senior school no coordinator for the ministry and or there to just say say aban wa ye nyina etetia and say ya ma no wo be free education na nya me ya do ma 4th April and na wo be sha say na o ma control so school na o ma ko sha say sua de no aban the TVET aba and they say the TVET no e free na free na wo mu no say akande bia o se de ka ho e ma ye ma no de ko sua de no wo mu nyansa no dwuma bia aban no e de beba ama wo mu nti eno no TVET in technical vocational education any sense anodwuma nti Mr. Speaker enu yetiawa na omuwe na omude atoda say total number of 571,892 as enkwada omutena se ekwotre BC nsohwe no eno no na omaye placement no awie enti obi abetimi akọ online no akọ check school a wunya ye na wa ma papa no maame omobeko school akọ je de friend prospectus no na omakoje na ne aban de be ma no so mohu na ne awoso onso todita oba na chi no na watonti no we eye Ghanaian Times obokrata na wakasa no pay ya waba ma na etiawa for young Ghanaian business leaders grab awards Ghana mabunu anase enumefo mrantie bi omadwuma so nti omakwa konya abasobo Africa Awards nti eno so Ghanaian Times obokrata no aboso tew ewa ha na sa songo nti na omutu ho no a
literature
I amanfo no say kwase ebuo ya bam omobonyo so ada bi omka ho sansem no ano obehu George Mirikuduka Deputy Minister Lands and Natural Resources ewo Ghanaian Times obokrata nanim na o say win-win situation kwase ebuo bi anim ejomanfo mpotem ho no wo munti ase se wo benya mfaso aban so benya mfaso na ebeboa ma West Africa hakura no so aban yagidini wo enchini tuo mu enti enyasam keto akura na
Kuduka Takwanso ayem rashe bedwani no Deputy Minister for Lands and
Kessben na zombo bobo ndipa o
Mekuduka.
And I don't talk about Sitako, I don't say Assassin Koboni Dinka. Emma, a Kobi from concern of Friends of Mekuduka Bear press conference, with him who be a senior boys be a mine near dear. And or the two, sir, a story, no name story, Ada.
Yes.
Ada, baby, Mutunchino.
My full large.
And a Kroman organizer, say, company no Buamokasia.
Yeah, electrician.
Omu Buamokasia.
Electrician, on Nudra.
See you near.
Why? Okay.
TV no soon tia hwam body no man who ana makofa asma ba me de mani abuobi
Mama
and airport papa ibia
aye But any Dr. Ken encoding komo emra wono aye global health security expert na many no ending komo anope endra omampanyin na na dodam kwekufo ado kasa COVID-19 no restrictions ni bebre na no omampanyin etimi apigem na yene no ending komo Dr. Ken o say mensa aye global health security expert. Doc, Otumeka, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker.
Na empomo to say
Nyamia dom obade na daroma ye ho ye pa migidi pa se wo so mo ho ye
me ho ye na te na mete won ka che
amani nti ya na
But my ending commodore can draw on Mampanyi Kasaya in a 28 address to the state. Some COVID-19 restrictions are there by theaters were closed down. Okwa sorry, maximum 2 hours. Now we a do baby cry their congregation no yama certain category of numbers you bet me a funeral about 50 to 100 people. Nama organize even though Ghana for the donor so one facade na nyejuma. But officially the president has lifted it as well as yem beaches ahodwa na ye wo mine borders are you close here or mampanyin say we're lifting in just to ensure say your economy no ebetimi ebu me back. Now what is the current state of our statistical figures when it comes to COVID-19 home mathematics any day year a chrome has here?
Mr. Speaker, me ask on mampanyin and right in catch and route to me making several pronouncements and announcements with regards to our strategy against COVID-19. At the moment, the time I think is extremely ripe for some of these restrictions to be lifted. One, because like Senior Okaya, statistics not actually shows that we've been able to control the spread of the virus quite remarkably within the country. And that's it's not in isolation. If you look at data from neighboring countries around us, and so they've gradually been able to improve on their viral spread control. They say if you look at the data specifically, as much as we are testing more because we have more testing centers now over the period, amount for gets easy access to testing and all, and we have just about 73 people who actively have COVID-19 in the entire country. That is quite remarkable. Most of the treatment centers, for example, where I work, which is the Tamale Teaching Hospital Treatment Center, for instance, it's been practically empty for about 2 months where we haven't had a single case of people who are critically ill who needed hospitalization. I think the time as people have been agitating for some of these restrictions to be lifted, which is in line with most of what other countries in the world are doing. They are beginning to move away from shutdowns and lockdowns to living with the virus. And that's because it's gone on for way too long. And some of the economic implications of some of these restrictions and all that have been quite devastating on several households that will share current global geopolitical situations that are caused within the world. That if you add restrictions of COVID-19 curbing measures with the current economic situation, so it might make it more difficult. And the biggest problem is people might not even adhere to it because of the situation. So I think it is in the right direction that we have decided as a country that we would implement a new strategy of living with the virus as opposed to living in fear of the virus going forward.
Okay, quite interesting though. But still, now no, yare no enquire. You the scientist, no, Anna Debia no mama yeho the new wave and no eba. As we speak now, some of the countries, as we said, are depriving or going away from a year lockdowns and the account. But you have stayed in China. I want to win your new BBA a free year. The Wuhan na COVID no a free wa a buy, you know. It doesn't seem to me so more restrictions, you know, one more lifting is so much. How do we compare ourselves to other countries? Day in, day out, you know, we are told of a new wave.
Correction, Kaka. I actually stayed in Korea, not in China, but quite close. They are all in Asia, but I studied in Korea. The problem with China is that they have a different political outlook to curbing this virus, and that is because their own population, they are a bit more susceptible to government orders because of their type of political system now, or more running or the state has a lot more power to be able to restrict people. Just 2 days ago, about half of Shanghai, one of the biggest cities that you would find in China, it's also on total lockdown, and they have a policy of zero infection, and that means that even if they find one case in a particular area, their strategy is to shut down the whole place so that everybody gets restricted. But they also have built a society and an economy that has the capacity to be able to deal with shutdowns and lockdowns. People have the ability to work from home. People have the ability to get the things they need from home and all of that. And so if you translate that particular strategy into a low middle income country to say, it becomes a bit difficult.
Okay.
And so as much as possible, the strategy from country to country becomes a bit different. Okay, maybe to say South Korea, where I stayed for a couple of years, you'd realize that almost strategy is very different from what the Chinese are doing. They are also adapted to living with the virus. They have very high rates of infection, and yet they have decided that because of the implications on their economy and because of the implications on livelihood and what the society is used to, there may not be enough room for more restrictions. So the government, they have adopted a way where many citizens, they are living with the virus in such a way. People get tested. If you get tested, they have even implemented some policies that you get home treated. You treat yourself when you go home. The government will supply you with the drugs, and you administer them yourself. And so you have to take a strategy that fits more certain. And certain. I strongly believe that compounding with, like I said, with the new economic upheaval, yes, it's quite imperative that we need to open up. We need to open up our economy fully. We need to give people the opportunity to make livelihood. And if we don't do that, Maka over and over that, poverty also have a very direct link to disease and health. And so if you push more people into poverty, then that means that you are going to have a whole situation where a lot more people are dying from other diseases, and not necessarily COVID-19, by virtue of the fact that they cannot even afford to seek health care when they need it.
Okay. Now, Mineo Casas is here. I'm on the Ghana Health Service COVID-19 dashboard. Now, we are told it is reported on their websites about 30,047,826 Ghanaian citizens have been vaccinated so far. Over the specifications, AstraZeneca has been dished out to about 8,505,664. Sputnik V, some 17,982 citizens have received their double jab. Moderna, some 1,063,160. Na afe waba Pfizer, 2,264,587. Then in a total, COVID-19 vaccine, Johnson & Johnson, some 1,196,000, making up the 30,047,822. Now, the vision to vaccinate over 25 million of Ghana's population as at the end of June, as the president said yesterday, achievable with the current figures.
Mr. Speaker, the thing with the vaccines is that I'm a bit apprehensive when the president or any other political leader makes certain percentile projections as to nipa dodoa or you be vaccinated within a period. That is because most often than not, people do voluntarily have to come and take these vaccines, and when you don't seem to have a very direct strategy for reducing what we usually call vaccine hesitancy within the entire country. Some of these projections are ambitious, not necessarily wrong to do, but it should come with a strategy. So far, we've vaccinated just about 30 million people. We are a country of about 30 million people, and we vaccinated 30 million. It's not bad. I mean, it's considering the amount of vaccine hesitancy associated with COVID-19 vaccine, and there's a lot of misinformation around it and all of that. So I've been able to vaccinate 13 million people. It's a very recommendable achievement. And see, but that notwithstanding,
but Doc, not the recommendation, no, Anna Mepe. I'm looking at the potency of the vaccines. Now, our ability, especially with the Food and Drugs Authority, sir, you better me tracking the excesses of vaccination, no, at the mangrove for share one more edgy, will be Jabu. The other things are a bad train, no, no. How well are we able to resolve it? Complications are ebano. Have we been able to track it, to know the potency of the vaccines for Yadiama citizens?
Mr. Speaker, that particular part of our vaccine administration is actually being done. Like I said, I'm deeply involved in this entire COVID-19 process, especially within the Tamale Teaching Hospital. And for instance, I am fully vaccinated. And when you are vaccinated, depending on the center you vaccinate, they have a hotline for you to report any adverse effect. Most often than not, people do not get any other adverse effect or undesirable effect than near advertising that are not with Sabe or Yakaka because you have panic, some fever, a few people have a little bit of diarrhea and headache. But we've so far within the testing centers that I am very familiar with, we haven't had any extraordinary undesirable effect or adverse effect that required let's say, for instance, somebody to be hospitalized or the other. But if you want to look at the potency of the vaccination, you can actually really project it from the rate of infection. Since we started vaccinating the hotspots within the country, we've seen a dramatic reduction in the rate of infections that people are beginning to see. So, as much as possible, I believe the vaccine is working, and the vaccine actually works. For somebody like me, it doesn't take much to convince me that vaccines work because there's a historical evidence of the potency of vaccine. This particular vaccine is also showing it so much promise, in as much as a lot of the jabs will require some boosters and all of that. But inadvertently, we are beginning to see a very, very low rate of infection. And I strongly believe that it is not because people are mostly adhering to the COVID-19 safety protocols like wearing masks. I mean, I walk into a classroom and practically none of the students there, are about 150 students, none of them are wearing a mask anymore. And that is because people feel that they've vaccinated, and because they've vaccinated, they are at a lower risk of getting the infection. And still, we are seeing lower levels of infection rate. And that means that the vaccines are working. You can attest, say, and say, so it's not because of the masking, and probably it's not also because of any social distancing, because we've seen very crowded places on TV in several other areas. And in Nigeria for boy, who Kumasi Sports Stadium, not just a peaceful, but still we are seeing very low levels of infection rate, and that can primarily be attributed to vaccination now. Okay.
And also because President Taka said the wearing of face masks is no more mandatory, and it has now become an option. So we share with face masks, and answer say we decide say won't share, and yen share no ye idea free by law and by pronouncement of the president. And how do we go forward? The president equally stated say we should ensure say. Brano, no, the routine hand wash, a part of our hygiene methods, you bet me at this. So, Mamintio on that, you be cinemas, you be quite movie premieres, and the Kika. So, how well should the nation be safeguarded against any future occurrence?
Mr. Speaker. So, I strongly believe I think the president's decision that mask wearing may not necessarily be mandatory for people is probably because they believe that a lot more people are vaccinated, and so as a result of that,
I am a tree in Mramukakramami. Why?
Tree in Mramwo, my medasipi. I think Dream said the vaccination program now, 30 million people is a lot in a country of about 30 million people. You almost vaccinated, by half. And you know, Dream said, Max Nangata, that is the thing. Max Nangata, hardly do they wear it well. They will be watching China, but and so it has become an ineffective measure in any way. Usha cinemas any beaches near the Ayaka and some of my pronouncement here. I took you back to the Black Stars match with the Super Eagles. Kumasi. The pronouncement has not been made, but Usha stadium so. Oh yes. You understand, and so some of these restrictions, Mami Yusuf had become overly cosmetic. That is because it's there, but people are not even adhering to it anyway. And if people are not even adhering to it anyway, and we are still seeing very low levels of infections anymore, that means that any free of record, because that obviously any strategy are airboy because people are not adhering to it. And let's focus on strategy now airboy, which is getting a lot more people vaccinated or more. You continues now reducing your vaccine infection rate. So I immediately say it is in the right direction. The one critical thing I'm actually happy about is the borders that had been opened, because if you restrict people for too long, what happens is that almost finding new ways of being able to go around the restrictions, and that was what was happening in our borders, because Omega say you two borders, so say you acquire Bangida, who's a man for Chemway Koba, a man for a man for and they will not even use the approved routes where they can be screened. They will use unapproved routes, and when they use the unapproved routes, then you can't even track. So it becomes very difficult, and also a lot of people's livelihood dependent on that transnational borders. And for years now, some of those people they've lost their livelihoods, which is not ideal. And so I strongly think that all of these restrictions that have been lifted may not put us in a situation where we would have an extremely high levels of this particular infection going around. But in the event that it we can still go back to certain strategies that we've actually moved away from. And BBNC as a country, when we feel that it should be based on the decisions, should be based on the data available. Say you call your name, that's it, lifty, and why in a way, that's the new variant, a amount for getting infected all over the place. I think there should be a way where we should be able to revert back to some of the public health strategies that are working for us previously, in conjunction with to be able to help curb the infection. So I think there's nothing amiss there.
Very well, Doc. I'm pay and Aquina with the Amaye.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm very grateful. Dr. Osei Mensah Ken, a global health security expert, and Yaneno Eddie and Komono. Now, was I a Juma Tamale Teaching Hospital? And the very latest on COVID-19, I'm paying easy some of the restrictions, and almost all, as I say, we face masks and mandatory. In any case, Namokra no more shed that, and the Ayana, Kwame say no, maintain who's all set. Yes, my uncle. Now you better go for good on some no any about it. Yakoba, you better buy a year. KessbenFMOnline.com no. So now I feel the one crata no akano. Ya boning in so the amount. This is Kessben FM 92.9, 93.3. Kessben TV across the country. Meaning at the Kwame Appiah Kubi, Mr. Speaker. It's a blissful Monday morning, and it's money making Monday. It's in Pajonia Quadro. You try a home na Mickey and Tony Montana at the good on some no at the abaya. There is a lot more to talk about. Stay with us for the rest of our programs. Na afe yene wo eni nkomo no and to us. Yabasi